One, sir.
Namaste. Welcome to everyone, and a special welcome to our honorable guest and the speaker today, Shri Gaurang Rathi, the Municipal Commissioner of Varanasi and the Chief Executive Officer of the Smart City project of Varanasi. And I, on behalf of my institute and my personal behalf, extend a warm welcome to you, sir, and also to all our listeners who have gathered to listen to this second virtual lecture of Institute Lecture Series. IIT BHU
Thank you for the
has
warm
the
welcome,
tradition.
Professor Ramanathan.
Thank you very much. IIT BHU has the legacy of having the Institute Lecture Series. It's a prestigious platform where we get to hear stalwarts, public thinkers, and leading intellectuals, academicians, whose experience as well as knowledge becomes a source of inspiration for all our students and faculty members. We have had many such luminary speakers, and today we are indeed happy to have you, Shri Gaurangji, as our speaker today. For the benefit of our audience who are not aware, and the decorum demands that I introduce you formally, Shri Gaurangji hails from Meerut, Uttar Pradesh, and has had an impeccable academic career, standing state first right from his CBSE 10th standard onwards, and having all flying colors in the academic pursuits that he has had. Graduating from IIT Delhi in the year 2009 with a BTech degree, after which he has had a stint in the corporate world for 2 years as a capital markets associate, followed by a year in DANEPS, after which he cracked the most formidable exams of our country, the Indian Administrative Service, standing in the lofty rank 4 in the country, after which he started his career as a civil servant, first posted as a joint magistrate of Moradabad and SDM in Bahraich between 2016 and 18, after which he has had his posting in our own city, Varanasi, in April 2018 as first a Chief Development Officer, followed by becoming the Municipal Commissioner and CEO of Varanasi Smart City from 2019 October onwards. Apart from his impeccable academic career and achievements that he has had in this path, he has been showered with accolades in other fields as well, like international quizzing, and he has passion in tennis as well as football, for he has been the most awarded sportsman or officer trainee at Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy, Mussoorie, and he has been a captain of the football team in IIT Delhi as well. With lots of accolades on him right at such young age, and with many more to come, I once again thank you on behalf of my institute for having consented to give this lecture. With this brief introduction, may I now request you, Shri Gaurangji, to talk to us on this topic that you have rightly chosen, which is people's servant. What's in it to be a career aspiration? Over to you, sir. I think your mic is not on.
Right. I'll repeat. So thank you once again, sir. That was a rather quite favorable introduction and a glossy film cover. Thank you for that. I think as most of the trailers of the movie miss and don't show, I'll tell you the part that needs to be told before we start the presentation. One was yes. So in IIT, I ended up with a CGPA of just 6, right? So within that whole array of whatever academic distinctions I could manage. So this one stands out, and you would relate to more as to if someone's, I don't know, I mean, how the standards have gone. So median CGPA might be whatever, things might have changed, but 6 remains a 6. So with that background, I think you would few of you might relate more that all's not hunky dory. That was one. Second, minor correction. I ended up having a rank 40 and not 4. Though it won't have made a difference, but yes, numbers are numbers. And third is that the presentation that I would be showing you is just a tad better than looking at me for quite long, because I ended up getting it made say half an hour before we started. We had to start with the talk, as Professor Saab said that your boring lecture might get just more boring if if they are to look at you. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll at least save that part. So I intend to be a very freewheeling talk between someone who passed out from IIT and people who are studying there, and will be man to man. And I believe that by the end of it, you'll be having answers to some questions that you might not have from chats that someone who is preparing for or want to prepare might have seen elsewhere, or might have got some info elsewhere, and he would have wanted to know that extra thing that he think feels a bit shy to ask from anyone else, or think that it's not the right platform to ask. So on that note, I'll start that presentation. I'll be sharing it. Let me see where it is. So is it visible? Are you able to see anything? I mean, I just said no. Now? Is it visible now? Yeah. Am I audible? Right. So yes, I'll just resort to. Yeah. So this is what my presentation and talk would be about. Why civil servant as a career aspiration? Well, I was thinking about it as to what should I be speaking to you about. In this information age, we are all informed, and most of the things that we intend to know or we want to know to make an informed choice, I think we get from the net. And currently there are so many platforms wherein we can get this information from. So thought that I'll be talking about few things that I can relate to and I can bring from my experience, and then try to place it on the general canvas of 5 W's and H. That's how we make this matrix as whenever we try to think about a certain project. And this is indeed a life project that you would be embarking upon, being a career service, and not a service which you can change on, say, in a couple of years, or in fact couple of months, once you decide that it wasn't worth it. Of course you can, but then that's how it's framed as a career service. So for whole span of your career, which is roughly till the age of 60, you are in that job, and then you are trying to derive whatever satisfaction slash dissatisfaction from the same sort of job. So starting from there, trying to answer the 5 W's and H, I'll start with what. Now, what exactly is in it for it to be, what does it bring on the plate? Well, maybe a few of you, the studious ones, might have read about Maslow's need hierarchy. And even if you haven't, this is a very important and a much oft quoted this pyramid that we have, which talks about what a person wants out of his service or job that he's doing. So generally they say initially someone would want his physiological needs satisfied. They would want that basics are satisfied. You have all the basics: food, shelter, being able to provide for yourself. These are the basic physiological needs. But then when someone rises higher up, they think that their safety needs should be satisfied as well. Property, health, as it's written there. And then after that, you start thinking beyond it, that you should be providing for your family, your bigger family, your wife, girlfriend, whatever, boyfriend. So for all the relations that you should be providing for. And after that comes the esteem and self-actualization. Now, how this particular service differs from the other is that this pyramid becomes a bit upside down. How? What career service of civil servant gives you is, I think the maximum it provides you is that respect, self-esteem, and of course also the status, recognition, strength, freedom. And that's how in the current setup in India the services are placed as. I'm making a value neutral statement here. It's not something that that should always be there with a job. It's not something, for example, a status. Now, status should come from what you are actually doing on the field, and rather than just being in a particular service. So that might not be something you would be looking at, but yes, respect and self-esteem is something that anyone would aspire for, whether someone is in any job. And this is one job that takes care of that particular aspect pretty well. And similarly, self-actualization. Self-actualization is that when you are doing that particular job, you believe that you are being more congruent to your inner self. So once you take that plunge, and once you decide for the right reasons, joining the career service, you think that you are mapping yourself more and more to your self-actualized being. Why I say that is, I'll talk from an example. When I was in IIT, then as is the case with most of us, I never aspired to be a civil servant, especially in the context I was in, the background of the times I was in, because during that time we used to get very good placements from the campus, and civil services was something that was sort of looked down upon. Why? Because you had to work under political masters. There was that stigma of not many officers being, as what people thought, not many officers being really having impeccable integrity, constrained environment, and your most importantly, I think for an IIT, that you don't have your IQ being satisfied for it. The job isn't challenging enough to whet your intelligence question every day. That was the background that when there were other people who were preparing for civil services. And after having joined and worked for a couple of years in a prop trading firm, so I joined a company which basically traded on markets, futures markets, by its own money. So that's why the prop trading firm, proprietary trading. And believe me, there wasn't a single day when you didn't have that kick coming from the job, because trading is one thing. I must tell you, it's something like playing FIFA or playing AOE or Counter Strike for that matter, because it's high on adrenaline. You always have that pump, that junky stuff being satisfied. So there was never a case of your IQ not being tested enough in that particular job, or I getting bored from it. But in the melee of in the overall melee, if I'm to put myself as someone working in our country, so somehow I felt that I wasn't being part of the wider canvas, so as to say. And so that was the time when I started dwelling further more deep inside, and I started thinking, what do I want from my career, and what is that job that I'd be taking that would be actually mapped to something that I would be wanting to do day in and day out. I was earning money, but money didn't give me satisfaction. So I think those 2 years there really helped me get on to realizing as to what need in this pyramid of Maslow, Abraham Maslow's need hierarchy that we call it. I wanted to be satisfied most, and I think the first and the second tiers of the pyramid are the ones that gets satisfied the most, because salary wise it's virtually something that you would be not even getting in the first year of your after joining any job that you get from IIT. So it's pretty meager. But yes, your self-actualization, your esteem needs, and even safety needs for that matter are taken care of. So that's what is there in the job for you when you see it from the perspective as what I would be getting from the career service. Now, why? Why is an important question that needs to be answered. There are several ways of looking at it. Ultimately, why is something that I would say go figure out yourself, you lazy bums. But but if I'm to speak from my perspective, why did I go for it? I told you I was earning well. Job wasn't boring. I didn't see myself stagnating after a certain time. Yet, as the figure suggests, अब मेरे पास रोटी है, कपड़ा है, गाड़ी है, एवरीथिंग इज देयर, पर क्या नहीं है? आई थिंक जो मिसिंग था, जो माँ का एनालॉजी होगा वो होगा कि I didn't see myself, there was something missing. I didn't see myself doing it day in and day out for another 15, 20, 30 years. So people join civil services for different reasons. Let me tell you, let me be very frank. Someone might join it for altruistic, notions, idealistic notions, but someone might just join it for money. And people do join it. Believe me, people do join it for status. They want the hang of that, the air that comes with it, the status that comes with it, the symbol, the power that comes with it. So people join it for all the reasons. But you need to figure out what is that strong motivation of yours that would be putting you there and that would motivate you to work in a very testing environment. Let me tell you, the picture might seem rosy from outside, but given the environment ecology you are working in, it's pretty testing. So in that testing ecology, amidst all sort of internal conflicts, conflicting situations, what is that one particular thing that would be wanting you to keep going is something that you need to look at. So I would suggest that why has to be the first question that needs to be answered, because that has to be very rightly placed. Otherwise, I have had batchmates who realized that this was not their cup of tea and they came in for very wrong reasons, which they found out in a couple of years, and they left the job. And this I'm talking from Indian Administrative Services perspective. There are several other services in this whole gamut of UPSC exam. You have police services, you have revenue services, you have foreign services. So there is a whole array of services that are lined up, and each service has its own canvas in which it operates. Indian Administrative Services, of course, is the widest one. So this why has to be clearly looked into. And let me tell you, another important reason which I'll come later is that it also allows you to have the, you know, best of the experiences. Um, I'll tell you how I zeroed upon making this choice. So one, of course, was that having that belonging to UP, you always see it being the lowest in social indicators. There is a huge scope of development work that can go in this particular state. And for that matter, in fact, the whole country, because India is not a developed country, whatever we can boast about. And also, after the service part, what I thought that let's say if there is a scenario that this hang of serving the nation sort of veers off, what is there in the job that would keep me hooked? So I realized that one of the major things ailing my batchmates from IIT was that they used to get bored from this job that they were doing. They thought that it's not challenging enough, I need to move on. So a few moved on from consultancy to startups, from few moved on from simple consultancy to banking jobs. Few moved on from IT jobs to consultancy. So there was that shift flux, and wherein people, the background being people searching for that one thing that really is that really is something that catches their fancy for a longer period. And I realized that since this job allows me so many different roles at any point in time, this just doesn't have that loop of being caught in that singular loop forever. So like an Indian, like if I'm to talk about my experience, it's been 6 years in the service. I have in my capacity as assistant director in Ministry of Textiles, worked over different projects, plans, policies related to textile department. In my capacity as a sub-divisional magistrate in Bahraich, which is a small district in eastern confines of UP, bordering Nepal. Looked at cross-border terrorism. I have looked at problems ailing the farmers in those areas, law and order issues, how insurgency is happening from those areas. So a whole lot of different issues are there for every different place. And here in Varanasi, it's a different ball game altogether. So there is just no scope of stagnating at a particular place. So this was one thing I think which any individual would associate with, that you don't get bored easily. So that's how my why got answered. I think anyone who's preparing for it should, have that why satisfied. Who is basically a derivative from once figuring out why I'm joining it. So you would be basically a painter painting at a white canvas. And believe me, it's the widest canvas that any job can offer you in terms of the range of experiences. So this is one thing I think this service has. This is the biggest plus of the service. You might be dissatisfied, satisfied, but nobody can take away the fact that the experience is so rich. You would have some stories to tell to your grandchildren, and once you come back home also. So I think this is a very interesting aspect, because at this cusp, at this point in your life journey, when you are thinking of what career option would be the one that would keep me rosy-eyed and happy and gaga, I think there is none. But one that would be closest would be the one that you really associate to, and I think in terms of sheer experience that it offers, this ranks right up there. As compared to any job in the world, for that matter. I mean, I'm not just comparing it to any job that India has to offer. I've been in touch with my batchmates for 11 years now, and seniors as well and they're all doing very well. I mean, someone is in best of the hedge funds, other one is best of the consultancies. Few have even become MP and MLAs, believe me, from IIT. But I can be smug in the knowledge that experience-wise, it's pretty rich. When do you take that call? At the sound of sounding very idealistic, there was this Gandhiji's talisman when those NCERT books of yesteryears used to have it. That was the first page. Whenever you are in doubt, or So that's how it read. I'll give you a talisman. Whenever you are in doubt or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man you have seen and ask yourself whether you would be doing justice to that person if you happen to do it. And I think this would answer your query. That's what Gandhiji said to summarize it. And it really actually augurs well. So it's not that when you look at the poor's face, then civil servant is the only option. No, as someone who is working anywhere in India, by paying taxes, by following the ethos of the society, by following the code of ethics, you are doing your job. Anyone is doing their job, but this is the most direct one. Yes, that is true. This is a fact. This is the most direct one, the most direct intervention that you can actually make in that last in the miles life. So taking nothing away from anyone anywhere who's doing anything, because any business is creating jobs, that's helping poor. Any job that we are doing is paying taxes. Through that, the poor are being helped, or not just poor, everyone's being helped. Countrymen are being helped. You are running an NGO, even then you are doing that. But as I said, this is the most direct one. And how did I arrive at it? This photograph next to it is basically at the cost of sounding a romantic sort of a photograph. I didn't get a good photograph, believe me, in the half an hour that I got to prepare it. So this is basically me and my friend. So we were chatting one day. He returned from US. He was working there, and we sat throughout the night. I had these. I was having these pangs of self-actualization for a lengthened period now. And that was that particular night when we sat throughout, and he realized his calling, I realized mine, and I resigned the very next day. So it might be called an impulsive decision, or it might be called an epiphany. You can take a wild guess, but that's how it happened for me. So it just clicked. I was thinking about my career options. I was even thinking of MS in Fin, believe me. So it wasn't just that I was just looking at civil services as an option, but then after having talked to him, he's a very close friend. He realized his, I realized mine. He flew back to US. He is in New Jersey, and I ended up joining here. So that's how it happened. So your win would come when that epiphany movement arrives, but I think there needs to be a constant conscious call to arrive at that. In the rigmarole of everyday life when we are working, I think this gets lost, and it gets too late in life, and we get too loaded with responsibilities that we have to fulfill to actually take a call that is best mapped to our calling. So this when is very important. Where does it take you? Well, as an Indian Foreign Service officer or administrative service officer, it takes you to Washington, DC. That's the image of Washington, DC. You can see the Capitol Hill, and that's a poor village in India. That's any of the villages in India for that matter, poor or rich for that matter. So it takes you there as well. You have problems living in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Well, then yes, there are lifestyle issues. There are lifestyle adjustments that you have to make. And if someone's not being ready to make that, or your spouse is not ready to make that, I think you have some tough questions to answer. But then that's the reality. It takes you anywhere and everywhere. So that's the sweet and verse of it. How do you get there? Well, just like that quintessential Bhalla's role in Andaz Apna Apna. So these are all, lame analogies that I'm giving you. So you got to have a plan. तो प्लान के मुताबिक आपको काम करना होगा. So that's what I realized after having prepared for 1.5 years, because it's such a queer little exam. It's unlike IIT. It's not like JEE that once you are clear with few fundamentals, then you realize that okay, this is the bare minimum I'd be landing at, or I would at least be clearing the exam because my fundamentals are clear to that extent. You don't know about this exam. This exam has got too many variables in the equation for you to satisfy or to account for all of them. So this is a rather queer exam, and my planning or the plan I adopted can be very different from the plan a person ranked one rank higher to me adopted, or the one rank lower to me adopted, and it actually happened. So I'll give you an example. So I relied totally on NCERT books and newspapers, etc. to prepare, and a person ranked 41st didn't read newspapers throughout the whole preparation part. So not dwelling too much into how part, because you are still in college, and if you are to actually take a call about joining services, then you would figure out for yourself, I'm very sure. But one single thumb rule that if I'm to give to you would be that how part is best satisfied by a person of your intellectual ability and your caliber by making a plan for yourself. Look at the course material as your Bible, Gita, Quran, and then map how best you can cover that particular course material. And I'm sure once you satisfy that, once you account for it, you would be having the best plan that there can be for clearing this exam. So that's how I managed to do it. I thought I'll share that thumb rule with you. I think with this, I'll end my presentation. I wanted to keep it short so that we can have a freewheeling session while we talk. I think we can go back to the discussion part now. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, and
yeah,
thank you for that presentation. And as you were saying, it's good to have a freewheeling discussion because we do have lots of civil service aspirants in the audience, and I'm told that around 320 had registered for this talk. So there are, although we cannot see them right now, but then those many numbers. So there are a few questions that people have put, and it's okay if I can read them out to you.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So this is a question from one Pranjal, who is in the material science of our institute. Right. How do I not go haywire and studying the stuff only needed for exam, since many of us do many coaching, or many of us do any coaching whatsoever? I repeat the question. How do I not go haywire and study the stuff only needed for exam?
Yes, so that's a very valid question, Pranjal. I think you have already taken a call of going in for civil services and wasting a couple of your golden years into preparation. So after having taken that risk, I think you have to be very judicious how to use them. Now, going haywire is something that really happens when you are preparing for this exam. And I tell you, how did I avoid it? I think from that you would get some answer to your query. The course is vast, both for the general studies exam and also the options that you choose with which you write the exam. The key lies in what not to read. I'll repeat, it's cliched, but it's very important what not to read. How did I manage to find what not to read was by, again, going back to what I said, the course material is there. You have each topic and subtopic outlined in the course material. Read it thoroughly, read it 4 or 5 times, not just once. Every 5th, 6th day, read it again. Map what's the best source for getting that particular subtopic or subtopic addressed. Make your notes, come back to it again. That's all. That's all you need to do. And believe me, in your rational and logical mind, you will develop that knack very soon and very easily of figuring out what not to read once you start following this thumb rule again and again. I hope this answers your query.
That's a very straight and a very pragmatic answer. The same student has a couple of questions, but I'm receiving through some of them. That how did you manage your classes and UPSC preparation side by side in your day? I believe you had done UPSC preparation when you were working or something, right? Because
yes, right.
Okay,
so
that question...
my first attempt when I got DANIPS as service had some time that was overlapping, but when I got Indian Administrative Services in my second attempt, that's when I left the job completely. But having said that, there are people who prepared while they were working, got a better rank also, got a lesser rank also. You have all sorts of permutation and combination coming in these services. There are people who cracked it in their 0 year. By that I mean straight out of graduation. So as I said, to each his own. That's the key. You prepare your own plan. You have read the course. Don't look at what the person sitting in your left is doing, sitting on your right is doing. You understand. You make a plan. Okay, these are the course materials I need to prepare. These many times I need should be writing the exam to get the best preparation, and just the way you prepared for JE by sticking on to basics, sticking on to fundamentals, and doing different questions of similar type and practicing by writing again and again. I think you have similar fundamentals working here as well. The only difference being that the variety amongst these variables that you have to answer. That's the only difference. It's a major difference, but yes, that's the only difference. But fundamental remains the same. You stick to the course. You stick to trying to answer, basing your building your basics. And once you, I think there is no stopping you. Coming back to the original question, that how do you manage both the things? That management part is a part of the plan as so you see, there are people who have been working, married, so they are taking care of their family, they are working, and they're prepared as well. So you can well realize how much time in terms of quantum they would be having. And there have been people like me in my second attempt who gave it the whole day for preparation. So so both works, and people have cracked it year in and year out. So it's just about managing the whole 24-hour cycle with regard to your need, your understanding of the subject, and how much you have prepared. It might take a year more or a year less, but it would fructify for sure.
I think that answers even the next question, but which I would still like to read it out. That how to manage peer pressure of placements for civil service preparation.
There is an opportunity cost that you would be paying while you are taking the decision of joining civil services, whether it be straight out of college, whether it be after you have worked for a couple of years, 4 years, 5 years. There are people, in fact, the rank 1 in my batch, having studied from IIT Kanpur, and after doing MBA from IIM Lucknow, working in a banking job in Hong Kong, returned back and wrote exam at a rather ripened age of 30. So you have, and people who joined services at 21, 22. So whenever you join, you are paying an opportunity cost against vis-a-vis your batchmate or someone from your college who would have risen up in the corporate ladder. And since we know the maths, number of people qualifying. So for every one qualifying, there are several who are not qualifying the exam, and that too from IITs as well. So you need to have a very strong plan B. You need to book the risk. You need to book the loss. That's the parlance I'm using from my trading days. As for anything in life, so was in trading. You need to know when to cut the loss. So you have to have a very clear idea based on what your life aspirations are, that after having given these many years and after having given this much of my energy, I need to cut it if I'm not getting through. So this has to be a very clear cut idea right at the point when you start. So there need not be something like ki aapne investment kar diya, since that investment is going investment in terms of time and opportunity cost that you have done. So to recoup that investment, you are putting in another year. That should be very clear in mind. Once that is clear, this would save you a lot of heartburn. This would save you a lot of self-doubting questions when you are preparing, because then you are on a mission that you kept out for yourself for a period of 1 year, 2 year, whatever you decide. Like in my case, I cut the. I thought that twice would be the number of attempts that I'd be giving. If I wouldn't have got through this attempt that I wrote last, I would have joined back in one of the corporate jobs. So one of my seniors from the college was the co-owner of Zomato. Now he has left the company. So I was in talks right after I wrote my exam. I was in talks with him that partner, I'll be joining you, and I would have joined Zomato if I won't have cracked the exam. That's how the paper pans out, and one should be very clear about it. Otherwise, that opportunity cost को recoup करने के लिए you end up circumcising your life aspirations.
On that note, I'm happy about the loss of Zomato and gain to the civil service. This is an off-track question, slightly tangential to what you have presented, more of a biographical sketch. This question is from Shashwat. What was your plan of action while working in the Kashi Vishwanath Temple Trust project? What were the challenges that you faced?
I had this additional charge of CEO Kashi Vishwanath board, which is taking care of the Kashi corridor project that is being done there, and I was also the CEO of a Kashi Vishwanath Trust. You can be doing you can be holding any charge, any portfolio. So I'm municipal commissioner as well right now. I was CEO Smart City and I was holding these additional charges. Now, when we see it from outside, we might be seeing it as a purely religious place. So you need to you might be thinking that way, that I need to have my religious affiliations mapped accordingly or aligned accordingly for me to have, some congruency while working on that role. And I'll tell you very frankly that, and this is again off the record and tangentially I'm telling that my religious affiliations are absolutely disaligned that way in terms of the whole melee is around the place, and in spite of that I had one of the better and enriching experiences in that place, and also my staff also had and not just my staff but also the stakeholders of that particular place also had a very refreshing experience. So for both of us, so it was a two-way enrichment. So for both of us, it was enriching. Now, not dwelling into what was my role in there. So my role was, of course, going in making the corridor. But then I looked at it more of as a project that I'm doing, wherein I have to, I have to ascertain that the project is being run fine. I have to ascertain that visitors who would be coming in once the project is executed are being that particular aspect is being taken care of. I'll basically whatever is required for project management, I'll be ensuring that. So that has nothing to do with me being a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Sikh, but it has to do with me being the CEO. And believe me, nowhere did it ever come into question, or nowhere was it ever a challenge that had I not been of X religion, that I would have found it very tough to work in there. So if that's what the question was, then I believe I have answered. Beyond that aspect, it's a profile as good as or as bad as any else, with its own share of problems, issues, and you thrive and you realize that you after at the end of the day you gain from it, you learn so much from it that you end up looking at it in a very nostalgic manner once you are through that phase. So absolutely total joyride.
Any specific challenge that you want to share that you faced in that project, that or something that is most that has piqued your brain the most?
I think all these profiles that you work in as a civil servant or as an IS officer, if I am to speak specifically, need that communication, that communication skill, if I'm to say, or that language that breaks the barrier in that particular melee or in that particular ecology. So in a mandir setting, you will have people of certain background with certain mindset being the prevalent ones. So you come down to that level and yet prevail upon through your logic. Now, what that transactional language would be is where the key lies. And believe me, people have this humongous appetite of deriving of getting onto your side and understanding logic if said the right way. I think any computer science student would appreciate that to crack through that code, if you are able to develop that algo and different settings, I think it's a tremendous live practical kick that you get after solving that. So you don't compromise your premise, you still dwell on your basic language of logic, and yet you are able to get through your thing which you think is right, or assimilate what someone else is to say. So so at Kashi Vishwanath, you had certain ideals, settings, understandings which you had to incorporate within your overall understanding of logic, and it gelled. It wasn't a non-congruent assembly at the end of it. So that is the beauty of it. I think this was a challenge as well as the gratifying aspect.
Wonderful. There's one question which is more, I would say, little blunt, but then I still would like to put it, and you may have the discretion whether to answer or not. What are the downsides of the IAS after joining the services?
Yes, no, I would want to answer that. That's very important and relevant question. One of the downsides that I feel is that I have to rely on my wife to earn well to afford me holidays, right? So I don't earn enough to plus yeah. So to start with the earning part, yes. So if I'm to be very blunt, it's just not enough. So that is a sorry part, and especially given the Indian setting, when someone thinks that to become an IAS officer, you are I don't know what, but the sorry part is that for the last 3 years I haven't been able to afford even a single vacation. So that's how the thing is, and also the settings are such right now. It's become very demanding in terms of how much it expects from you as a person. So it's not just about the role, it's not about the circumstances, but it starts eating into your personal time that any normal human would want to have at the end of the day for themselves or for their families. So partly because of the financial part, vacations, me not having vacations is also to do with the fact that I haven't had any holiday for very long. So I think these are some compromises which any person working in any circumstance should be making for a very long time. And though the natural checks and balances of the service take care of that fact, so I might be in a very taxing job profile right now, and at the very next moment I might be in a profile which is slightly relaxing and very much relaxed for that matter. But that's how the thing stands. So there might be circumstances for a very long period which might be very compelling, and that has led to certain dysfunctionality in a person's life. So you have psychological problems, you have high divorce rates. You might be mixing the two, or you might not be. So because there is no study that actually brings about the fact, but then yes, these are the two downsides that come to my mind right away. Otherwise, rest of them are something which are there in any ecology wherever you are working, a bad boss or a bad working environment. So that's fine. I think that's common for anywhere. These two are the standouts, I believe, for someone who's from IIT and who has more lucrative options and an easier life to look into. So yes, that's a call that you have to make. There is no denying the fact that these are the two realities.
On that same note, Indranil Natu from Chemical Engineering wants to ask your view on what is your experience regarding political interference that is most of the time spoken as a demerit of the service.
Now we need to have a closer look at what our country is before us making any qualified judgment as to who are these political people and who are we and who are the rest, because that's how those who we deemed fit to make the course for this country thought right that our country should be run as. Now I'll make a very normal value neutral judgment here, which is that this is the premise that we have, and this is the reality. Now my task is to how to assimilate it the best, and also to learn, if at all there is a possibility, from their collective conscience and experience, and try to deliver what the people wants in my understanding. Now there has to be sort of an humbling experience for us as well, because believe me, the political capital of our country, whatever whatever caricature we draw of them as, in many of the local and pressing matters, when it's about having right understanding of certain issue, they are quite a many times right also. So again, the transactional currency might be something which you might not be very happy about, but the give and take is many times enriching as well. So for me as an administrator, political interference uh, hasn't been a deterrent for me in totality in service. And not just me, I think for any of the civil servant, it is not something that would be a deterrent for a very long time. Why? Because either it might be a case when if it comes to loggerheads, then either you have your say or he or she would have their say. So anyone would prevail. Even in that scenario, the next one who is coming in your place would be taking a reasoned call, and you would be having a next avenue to move on to. So nobody is really putting a dagger on your neck and making you do something. And I think if you are to when you would gain experience and when you would move higher up in the ladder, those conscience calls are there for everyone to take at all levels. It's not just happening at government level. There are many companies, there are many consultancies who have very senior people doing all sorts of things which would be considered unethical, and which further, in fact, which might put a much maligned government servant at shame. So this conscience, this ethics is a subject that when you move up the ladder is when the stakes are higher, those questions would always come. Political ecology is one setting wherein you might be prompted to take wrong decisions, but as I said, it also your experience, your grooming in the service makes you strong, and makes it clear enough for you to take a reasoned call. Ultimately, the onus lies on you. Which side you take.
Wonderful. There is one Aman Kukade who has a futuristic question, and I think this is very practical also. So he says, or he asks, if one is selected in IAS, then they can get posted to rural areas as well, as you had shown also. Doesn't that affect the children's education and their own family life?
Yes, absolutely. So if I'm to talk about an IAS officer, I would say that partially it gets affected. Now, if you are to look at general pedagogy, standards, so we say that a family is a kid learns from the family the most for initial 7-8 years. So I think by the time a kid is 14 or 15 years old, generally an IAS officer happens to return back to state capital, and most of the state capitals have decent learning opportunities. Yet, having said that, there might be few. If your aspirations are very high, you want certain schools only in which your kid should be studying, then in that case your family might have to take a call of moving away and not living together, and that's a harsh call to take and happens in many cases. But reasonably, you can have a lengthened stint together with your family, unless your spouse is in a service which doesn't really provide opportunities for your spouse in the tier 2 or tier 3 cities, which would be a challenge, which would be further increasing as we move ahead, and especially in our generation. So people before us many of them had spouses, housewives, or for male officers, housewives as spouses, so who were well satisfied with wherever they lived. But with working spouses, whether it be male or female officers, this is a challenge that yes, service is facing, and they become long distance spouses, I think.
That's a wonderful answer. There are a couple of questions which are related to the optionals as choice while preparing for UPSC. Many people have asked, should we go for math, because we are IIT, so does math have an upper edge as an optional, or we lack in humanities, how to equip ourselves in humanities? So your comment or your kind of guidance on that.
Very briefly, I'll just put in 2 points. The first point would be empirically, people have chosen humanities as their optionals more than science subjects. and people here, by people I mean people from IIT. So that is the fact. And second, I think the only reason or the only guiding principle for you to choose a subject is that you need to be amongst 99 point top 0.1 percentile of that subject. For you to do that, you need to be very comfortable sitting for 6-7 hours in that subject. You should be very comfortable uh, in earning that level of excellence. In that particular subject, you might be weak, but at the same time, you have that appetite to read that subject day in and day out for lengthened periods, and and that student in you, that person's curiosity is being whetted every time that you're reading the subject. So like we say, wine ki tarah, as the wine matures, wo tastier hota rehta hai. That's the kick that subject should be giving up. Whatever it takes for you to gauge what that subject is, that's the call that you need to make. But the only guiding principle should be that you need to be that in top 0.1 percentile, and for that you need to love the subject. Forget about any data that any coaching shows you that this subject is the favorable one amongst the people, amongst the peers. The last 3 years have shown these results. That's total, even not factually correct. That's bullshit. The only guiding principle is the one that I just told you about. For the subjects that you haven't read ever in your life, how to know that whether that subject would be the one? Well, you would have to put in some time, give it at least 3, 4, 5 days, get hold of an NCERT or a good textbook of that subject, have a read, and then go by the intuition.
So wonderful that we are also closing to the closure of the lecture time now. So with last question, that is particularly from my side, I would say that how was this pandemic period and how was it managed by you and by your team, and taking Varanasi as one example, and you can generalize it to perhaps the district and the state in your capacity.
So I didn't really put in montages or pics of my workplace experience, and I believed that though I didn't have time, that was one reason. But second reason was also that I think that shouldn't be the motivating factor for anyone, because as I said, a film's trailer can project anything. You can make any job sound like the most fascinating one. Talking about my pandemic experience, I think beyond the part that I could play an important role in management of the disease vis-a-vis Varanasi, especially beyond the part that in this real-time crisis situations, it brings out the man in you or women in you. I mean, being gender neutral. Yeah. So beyond those parts and the kick that you get in working these conditions, if I'm to look at it as what I gained out of it from a third person's perspective, or from after dissociating myself from the field, I think the IITian in me could use technology, technology at a level and to a level which was unprecedented. So we have a command and control center here in Varanasi that we built under Smart City. We leveraged that for virtually every action that we took. So we had almost all the information that we needed, whether it be hospitals, whether it be where are people placed, whether it be returning people from different flights, whether it be different service provisions, where are the grocery stores, where are the different vendors. We all had it. We had it all on GIS maps, and through using analytics, we could leverage the analytics to actually map the resources with the ones who needed that. Now, this was a big satisfaction that I drew out of my whole experience from the pandemic, because one experience that anyone who would have worked from the pandemic would have gained would be serving the mankind. That's how the cliche goes. But then, yeah, that's the biggest takeaway. Anyone who has worked in any capacity, whether it be providing for people who couldn't get food and packing food packets for them, or providing an information that someone was missing, to getting someone e-pass, or any job that anyone did, just differing in quantum, would have gained that satisfaction of virtually saving someone's life. But beyond that, I think this was one very satisfying experience that I drew out of it, that whetted my intellectual capital. And that's very important. Why? Because many times what you learned, what you did, become dissociated. So that's where that satisfaction starts waning, or starts waxing away. And when you are getting those ready-made templates for your understanding, your beliefs to work on, I think then it becomes a very gratifying and a satisfying experience. So, and this you would see across different profiles, whether it be a businessman or an entrepreneur, whether it be anyone working in any capacity. I think this is the one biggest kick that anyone can get from any work profile that someone is in. So, so I think this is how I would sum it as that beyond the gratification of working for betterment of around 30-35 lakh people in Varanasi, whatever I could in my role as a municipal commissioner, I could leverage the resources rightfully, mobilize them, and also could get the final result out of it gainfully, was something that I would be really satisfied if I'm to look back this whole pandemic period.
Thank you very much, Gaurangji. So that
in fact,
was
in touch with you, I took your help as well. So being in touch with IIT is also gratifying that way. Your help was very important at that particular point in time.
Thank you. So very candid exposition for the last 1 hour that we had from somebody who confessed of CGPA rather low to going into serving something like 35 lakhs of people. Bureaucracy, it is said, it's like walking on a knife edge, where you draw a very thin line between being candid and being diplomatic. And I think today your lecture surely must have shattered several stereotypes of the Babu Dome that normally people carry, that the candid nature of your exposition, the dynamic. I have seen you working in close quarters of how dynamic you take things into, get things into action. So with all these traits and with all the beautiful guidance that you had given during your talk to our civil service aspirants, I know how busy you are, and despite that busy schedule, you carved out this time to talk to us. I thank you once again on my personal behalf and on behalf of my institute, and look forward to interact with you on this platform or in any other possible platform where you can guide our students even further. On that note, I bid you a good evening and thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir, for this opportunity. It's always refreshing to talk to, though it was a monologue for most of it. But I think any of the student who wants to continue the loop, want to ask anything further, can write to me. I should have written my email ID at the last, but as I said, it was a shoddy work in terms of presentation I made. I believe on any group that is there, I can share my email ID with you. If you can share it further there, I would be more than happy to answer the queries if at all there are.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Once again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yes. Have a good day.
Yep.